and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we are doing something very niche, specialist. Those of you who don't know and who are new, hello, my name is Emma. I am dyslexic. For this video I'm going to explain to you what I've had many questions on. Again, if you don't know, I've made a lot of studying, degree videos, and my glasses have featured a lot. A lot of people have no idea what they are, so I figured I would sit down and explain to those of you who are curious, but also for those of you, who are dyslexic, have dyslexic children and are curious about them, how much they help, what difference do they make, and just have your own questions. I'm gonna see what I can do for you. I personally love my glasses. So these are the second pair that I have. These are essentially just glasses with tinted lenses. This is my older pair. If you want the quick summary, these are absolutely fantastic. I cannot tell you the difference they have made. I did a degree in comparative literature. There's more books as well, so I mean, I couldn't have done that if I didn't have my glasses. I just don't know what I would have done. I got my first pair, these ones, when I was, I want to say 15 or so. Previously I'd had my eyes tested and I'd been given some glasses with a prescription maybe when I was in year 8, so maybe when I was 13, 14, because people thought it would help. It didn't. I never wore them. There was no value to them. So background, I have 20/20 vision. My eyesight is essentially perfect, like there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. So then when people would suggest, oh, try glasses, it's like, I don't know how helpful that is. These though are tinted lenses. They are amazing. So the reason I have two pairs is obviously I had to get my eyes retested at one point, and then we had the colours adjusted and changed. So essentially you can have any colour that you like. But I feel like first of all, we need some more context. So with dyslexics, one of the most common things everyone knows about us is that we struggle to read. A large contributor to this is that when we read, we get a lot of visual stress. There are a lot of dyslexia simulators online, but really what that is only, that's not simulating what dyslexia is, that's simulating the experience of us reading. So we experience a lot of visual stress. If you are wondering if maybe your child is dyslexic, have them read something and then, are they describing the words as moving? When you're reading, sometimes it looks like the moving. It can look like something is in a different place. You can skip lines. You can start reading in the wrong place. Skipping a line when you're reading is one of the many reasons I didn't want to read aloud in class, because you skip a line and then everyone's like, oh, you made a mistake, and it's like, great, thank you. I will of course leave lots of links to everything that I'm talking about. But so when you're reading, you get a lot of stress. It means you have to concentrate so much when you read, and it just takes so much energy, and some people can get headaches and it can make you feel dizzy. It's just, people then are often very much like, oh, you're being lazy, you haven't read enough. I'm like, no. It visually is very difficult. Even some patterns can make dyslexics feel very, when you look at it, it's just, you can't, your brain is just not being able to cope very well. There are some carpets that if I have to walk on them, I feel incredibly seasick, because just the pattern on the carpet is just too much. So I think the best ways that I usually describe it to people, it's as if you're hearing static on the radio, or as if you have pins and needles, or as if you see static on the TV. It's that kind of sort of thing that is almost just over what you're trying to read. But then the moment I put my glasses on, it goes away. Honestly, magical, game-changing. It's most problematic for me to read if I'm trying to read on a white piece of paper, black text. That contrast is very high, and it just makes everything much more difficult to read. Different fonts can have more visual stress than others. I know we all love to bitch and moan about Comic Sans, but one of the reasons we see it in primary schools everywhere is because it is an incredibly dyslexia-friendly font. So I know we all hate it, but the reason it's used is because it's so easy to read. And also I know that in different languages I experience visual stress more than in others, which is almost why I want to tell you I can read better in some languages than others. For example, French has a lot of vowels, so it's very rounded when you see it written down, so it's a lot calmer for my brain to have to process it. Dutch, on the other hand, has got so many Z's, I's, J's, K's. There are just lines everywhere and dots everywhere. So when I have to read Dutch, I don't. As a child, we had a lot of comics, and I really would only look at the pictures. I would not even try and read it, which is actually one of the reasons I think why my Red Dutch isn't very good, because as a child I never practiced, because it was just so stressful for my eyes to have to look at it. But I want to stress this is not really anything to do with how good or bad your eyes are. Like I said, I have 20/20 vision, so don't think that just because your child can see perfectly, or that you can see perfectly, that glasses like this would not help. So essentially it removes the very harsh contrasts and then it is just so much more pleasant to read. It's like when the static on a radio goes away or pins and needles stops. So that is the sensation of just being able to read. So if your child's ever struggling reading and is saying things like, oh, the lines move, or I can see rivers running through it, or it's bright, or it moves, anything that would suggest a sensation of moving, I would get them checked out for being dyslexic. And if it comes back that they are, I would very much recommend glasses. For obviously other things that you can do to help, the main two that my school provided as a solution was a coloured overlay and coloured paper. These are okay solutions. While it is exactly the same concept of just making the contrast different so that your eyes can adjust and cope a lot better, they did work. I never had a problem with how effective they were. My problem was with its efficiency. Coloured overlays are an actual pain in the bum to try and use. If I have to ever try and use them on books, it's near impossible. You can't do it. You have to then move it each time. It's another thing to hold. It is just incredibly impractical. Then at school, when I would try and use it and I would try and put it over a piece of paper, then every time I tried to write something, I have to take the overlay away, write something, put it back. It's just an enormous faff. The other thing then with coloured paper, which my school introduced, you'd go into the printer room and they would just have like sacks of blue paper, yellow paper, orange paper, green paper. But we had other girls in my classes who also had different coloured paper. So for a long time, my colour was blue. As you can see, they've become pink and they actually got a bit lighter. I will explain why in a second. But then each girl who has dyslexia would have a different coloured paper, which then meant that if some teachers were not prepared and they forgot, they would feel, first of all, incredibly guilty, and then the first thing they would do would be rush to the printers to go ahead and print it out, or let us do it. So then either way, you're losing lesson time. I remember one teacher felt so bad, literally ran from the room. They spent an enormous amount of time, I think maybe 20 minutes, printing off all of our colours, and it was just like, you know what, I would much rather just have the lesson. Or they let you leave and we're like, oh, go print it off, and I'm like, oh well, but now I'm missing part of the lesson, great, thanks. The coloured paper just meant that someone else had to be responsible for, you know, I guess in a way for my dyslexia, which is insane. I remember other girls in my classes, some had red lenses, some had yellow. I can't remember who had yellow, but I remember they didn't want to wear it because they said it made them look like Elton John. I remember someone having green. So really my mother was introduced to the idea of this via the school that I went to. I am very, very grateful for that. This was just so much more efficient. And then when I changed schools, nobody had them. I remember my mum telling some of her friends with dyslexic children and nobody had heard of them. That's why I'm telling you, internet. And then also, look, everything's pink. Ooh, this is what it looks like when I try and read. They do have a little bit of prescription in them, but it's almost like I see HD and then I put these on and I'm like, oh damn, 4K, ha. So in case you're just wondering like, oh, can't you just use an overlay? Yes, but I think these are just much, much more efficient. Obviously the downside of them is that glasses are more expensive, but my mum and I have always agreed this is an investment. My mum was very kind when she let me redo them, so I got these when I was like, yes, maybe 15, and I had these redone when I was, I want to say 18, so my mum was very generous and she let me choose quite a nice pair. So we went for silver because it matches I'm wearing gold jewellery, which completely disproves my point, but I usually wear silver jewellery, so it matches. So essentially the same as with any glasses, you just have your eyes tested and you can choose the frames. So the way that they actually test your eyes, or in my case, the way they tested mine, was that there is this big box thing and you have to look into the box and there is a thing of text. You have to read that, and with the box, they can adjust the light so that it looks a different colour. So for me, I remember the first time I did it, it was very dark. I needed a very, very low contrast between that black text and then what I would see. Whew. See, they are very, very dark, which meant that I always needed to be put next to a window when I was working, which also meant that I would stare at the window because that's me. But these are really, really important for school. I had a little note on the register that said, Emma has glasses, don't ask questions. Once did get said that I look like I'd come straight out of rehab with these glasses. That's probably my favourite comment ever. So for me, my eyes respond really well to sort of blue, purple, pink spectrum, which is kind of funny if you think about it and know me well enough. I think the reason I had them so dark was because I just wasn't very good at reading, I guess. When I was doing my degree, obviously I had to read so much that it essentially, to a little bit, does train your eyes. So I think then when I had my eyes retested, I just didn't need as much help. And I think this is much, much better for my eyes than these ones were because they're so dark. So you can essentially see This is, I guess, is personal growth and the amount that I've read. So like I said, the more you read, the easier it does get. I think when I try and read things, when I haven't read anything in a while, and try and read it, especially without my glasses, I tried this last night, it is incredibly difficult. It is so difficult. I am an adult telling you how difficult it can be to just, it took me, to try and read one page, I had to focus so hard. I was tired, I did just give up. It was not worth the energy at that point. So now imagine having a child who's trying to read, you can't even really read properly yet, and you're getting frustrated with them. If you have a dyslexic child or look after one, just the only thing I could ever ask you is to just have, please, so much patience and understanding. And I can appreciate how frustrating that must be when you don't know what is the problem. But if they're ever having that much of an issue, please get them tested for dyslexia, please. Like I said in different videos, there's so much like suffering that goes into being dyslexic as a child, but I cannot stress how difficult it is. But then if I do, you know, carry on and I try really hard, I can then bring myself to read a lot faster, but I put my glasses on and it's so much easier. Then yes, when I've been reading a lot with my glasses, I try and read again. It again becomes very difficult and I have to then try and readjust to read something without my glasses. But I think, you know, I mean, yes, you can try and get somebody to, you know, train their eyes and work better, but this is just so literally game-changing. I keep saying it, but it's really, really true. So yeah, you can very much argue that your eyes can become a little bit dependent on the glasses when reading, but it really is most difficult when you're in a situation where it's like a white sheet of paper and you have to read text. I will occasionally get it with menus that have really small fonts that are really squiggly. It's squiggly. So then I will literally sometimes hold it to my face and be like, oh, I can't read. And I will often just get someone else to read it for me and tell me what's on the menu because I'm just physically incapable. It's bizarre to know that your eyesight is perfect and then I'm like, I can't read. So again, a little bit of patience if you're with someone dyslexic goes such a long way, I promise you. But in terms of my education, this is one of the best decisions I think we ever made. I understand that there apparently is a bit of dispute about whether they are helpful, whether they work, whether they're useful. I can from experience tell you point blank, I don't think I could have finished my degree if I didn't have these glasses. That is my stance on them. They are fantastic. And not enough people seem to know that they exist, which is why I'm here. I do just want to stress that while struggling with reading is probably the most obvious symptom of being dyslexic. Just because I put these glasses on, my dyslexia does not go away. It's not going to cure your dyslexia in any kind of way. That's wishful thinking. Dyslexics have brains that are physically different from a normal brain. That is fascinating. You are just hardwired this way. You're never going to cure it. It's part of who you are, but that is not a negative thing whatsoever, and it's something that I'm very fiercely against. Even calling it a learning disability, I absolutely cannot stand that. And I also think that it kind of shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what dyslexia actually is. But for its most superficial symptom, which is pretty much at its worst while you're in school, many dyslexics unsurprisingly will choose career paths where they don't need to do very much reading. Or if they do, if I have to read a script, I can. Sorted. No longer a problem. One downside I feel a need to note to you is that I did spend 3 years in the library looking very hungover. You will be asked, why are you wearing sunglasses? Very, very often. I will confess that sometimes in seminars and lectures where maybe I didn't know people, or if I didn't have to, or if maybe it was just a short poem, I would not put my glasses on because you put them on and everybody looks at you. And then in school it was fine because, you know, you're with the same people enough that you can explain it, the teachers know, no one cares. People will want to take them off you and try them on to go, oh, it is the colour that it looks like it would be. But everyone just wants to like try them on, be like, haha, that's cool. But at school, you know, everyone gets over it. But at uni, because you see so many different people, you see them once a week, and you're just like, I just sometimes didn't want to have to try and like deal with explaining myself. Yes, I thought sometimes I had to. Sometimes I just had to put them on, otherwise I would not be able to participate. Forgetting your glasses is probably the most irritating thing that can happen. If you normally wear glasses, you wear them on your face. Mine, I have to cut them around, and then I forget, so. And then you put an empty glasses case in your bag because you're in a rush, and then you're like, oh, it's on my bedside table and now I can't do anything in this lecture. But one thing I must say is that I don't need to wear my glasses when I'm reading a book, because usually the colour of the paper is so yellow that it does not have that harsh contrast. This is why in many a video have I banged on about which are the best editions. These are the best editions, and this is why fonts matter. it's important. You should be inclusive with your font usage. So while there are many pros, those are just a couple of cons. One of the other cons is that they are much more expensive than if you just have blue paper or if you just have an overlay. I am not entirely sure how expensive they are. I don't think that in this country that you can get them on NHS. I think we did have it done privately. I'm not sure what the case would be in the States or in your country, but I think it's definitely worth speaking to your opticians about. You might have to go a little bit further afield to be able to get them done, but I can tell you that it is so worth it. You have to consider it an investment in your education because it just makes a world of difference. And then obviously, like any glasses, you can choose the frames you want, but either way, with any of the colours, if you're dyslexic in this country, you should be able to speak to your Senko or your child's Senko for school and ask questions and see what advice they have to offer you, because really anything to relieve visual stress will go a very long way in your education or your child's education. It will make such a difference. I do just personally highly recommend the glasses because they are just such an easy and undisruptive way to get that little bit more help. And also, when they are glasses, you don't need to ask anyone else for help, and you don't need to go, oh sir, you forgot my paper. So it's just very nice to take a little bit more of your independence back, I guess, in that way. We all like not feeling like a burden. I guess a last note though is actually with technology, I really don't need my glasses when I'm reading something though on a screen. For whatever reason, it's just not necessary. I personally think it's potentially because, you know, it's a screen so it's light, so the glare just doesn't exist because it's light that you're seeing. I don't know how to explain it to you. I'm not a professional, these are just my experiences and my opinions. But a top tip for my dyslexics, one thing I do is when I'm writing an essay, I will change the colour of the paper to blue or pink or something, so that when I'm staring at a screen for hours on end, the contrast is just a little bit lower and a little bit easier in my eyes. So that is something that is free that you can do, but it's really easy. I highly recommend that. It took me to get to sixth form before I thought about doing that, so there you go. My experience is just make the paper blue. I have absolutely no idea why one colour works better for another. Those are questions I can't answer. I have tried to look it up, but online there is very limited resources. On YouTube there's limited resources, but with the glasses the bottom line is you can read so much more effortlessly. It's so much less stressful for you. It takes so much less effort. You can actually just work then on what you're trying to do and have to not incorporate reading into a large part of your energy usage, which is always very nice. I cannot rave about them enough. I will of course do my best to leave any extra reading and resources for you down below. If you have any very specific questions, please ask away. I have of course linked lots and lots of my dyslexia videos down there. I have many more that I would like to make. This is absolutely an ongoing series for this channel. I've put them all in a playlist there and there. But yeah, these are my glasses and I don't know what I would have done without them. I, in part, don't know if I would have a degree if I didn't have them, but they're really fabulous, even if I, did spend a lot of time looking hungover in the library, which, I mean, as a student, sometimes I was, so it really helped with any bright lights. So yeah, I think that's everything from me about the glasses today. Like I said, any questions, leave them down below. If you have any video requests, especially dyslexic video requests, I would love to hear your suggestions and your ideas. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe and all that jazz, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye. I couldn't do my outro without my glasses falling off, and now my hair is in my lip gloss. What?